you'd like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or follow us on any of our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram at Live on Four Legs Podcast, and on Twitter at Live on Four Legs Pod.
Looking real good in Jacksonville, I gotta tell you. We were driving through town and all the bail bondsman offices and stuff. I was wondering what the fuck we were getting into tonight. I was wondering. So I'm glad you got out for the night. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Gentlemen! Mama Creed. Matt fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper! You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody now, welcome to Live on Four Legs, the definitive live Pearl Jam podcast. And what we are is we're a Pearl Jam podcast that focuses on live shows. Every single episode that we have that we're not throwing things in the trash, we talk about a different live show in the Pearl Jam catalog. And today we are traveling to the not so distant past, 2016, because this is a Patreon requested episode, Jacksonville 2016. We're going to do a little bit of Florida. So strap in. This is going to be a fun one. Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there. Hello. This is a good one for you because you were there, and this kind of, kills a couple birds with a couple stones here.
Definitely. Yeah. This was part of my, my little mini run of shows in 2016 where, they did not play Atlanta. It was rumored. There was hinted, I think it was on a venue's website that it was going to be right around this time. But I think it was going to be the 15th, I think was supposed to be Atlanta, in between Jacksonville and Greenville, but ended up falling through. So got the tickets for Jacksonville, ended up lucking out, getting GA for all my shows. And went down the night before, camped out at the venue. I'd actually been at this venue back in January of 2016 because I was officiating at the U.S. Curling National Championships, actually. So I'd kind of been a little bit backstage and was kind of familiar with the area. So I wish I'd kept my lanyard with me. Maybe I would have been able to sneak backstage. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was kind of waiting around for the show. I was kind of picturing them kind of hanging out in that backstage area because I had just been there a few months before. But yeah, this kind of kicked off my shows in 2016. I was lucky enough to see 5 shows that year. And this was the first one, and it doesn't really, it doesn't have a lot of the moments. Obviously, Greenville is the big one, and Columbia being the night that Prince had died, that had some big moments. But yeah, this one it doesn't kind of hold up, but it's still got some great stuff in it. I still have good memories of it.
Yeah, it's kind of under the radar a little bit, and if you like collector shows, there are collector's items in there, so we're gonna get to all that. But what show was this for you? I feel like this is 2016. You had a bunch, and you've been to 9
this is only my 5th one.
Okay, so this is 5. Yeah. So this really is kind of like your kickoff to your Pearl Jam lifer stage, right?
Yeah, this is my first one since Memphis. This is the first time I'd actually gotten to see them multiple times in 1 year because it had been 98, 2012, 2013, 2014, one in each. So yeah, I was excited to be able to see them. I think it was 3 times. It was supposed to have been 4. Everybody knows the story that Raleigh got canceled, but I got to see them 3 times in 8 days, so it was great.
Yeah, no complaining about that at all. So let's bring in our guest today. He is one of our Patreon people, and he's also the reason why we are doing a concert almanac chronology, whatever you want to call it. Chris Everett is here. And before we get into talking about the show, you bought the domain for liveon4legs.com. And what possessed you to do that? Let me ask you that.
I don't know. I mean, it just seemed like something that y'all should have, right? I mean, I know you have the
happy
space
we do.
on Live Footsteps and Dave being so, involved and
Yeah, you
generous
probably.
to have
Yeah, I'm
guys
sure
on
you
there.
had to fight off some high bidders for that one.
Yeah. Well, see, my idea was I was going to hold it hostage, so that
I think you're
eventually when
still
you guys
holding
want
it
to
hostage.
technically, but we'll make sure that it gets in the right hands.
Yeah, and we're thankful for that, and it was just kind of a thing that we popped into the Discord, and you were like, hey, what about the domain? And it kind of turned into this bigger thing, and look at what we're trying to do now. So thanks for that, and welcome to the show. This is your first proper episode. You've done a bunch of set list drafts, and you've been involved in wherever. So let me ask you. So you're going into Jacksonville. You've been to a few shows, right? You're pretty early on in your show going.
Really early on. Yeah, this is actually my second show.
Okay.
And
your first was that 2012 Atlanta, right?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Yep. They just Midtown in Atlanta.
So you and John are your show buddies, basically. You probably cross paths in the bathroom or something like that. You just never know.
He had better seats in Jacksonville, that's for sure.
So take me through this. Take me through the anticipation and everything. Take the audience through this. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Take me.
I mean, it's one of those things where coming out of Atlanta, my brother-in-law took me to my first show in 2012, and my wife, I should say as well. And it was just like the light switch flipped for me, and it was just like, oh my God, this is the most amazing experience.
And that show was such a tease too, because it was just 2 hours. Like it felt really compressed and went by really fast. You didn't feel like you got the full experience. So yeah, it was the same thing for me. It just made me want to go see them again.
Yeah, dude, totally. And then when this opportunity in Jacksonville came up, at the time, my best friend from high school, college, he lived in Jacksonville at that point in time. And I was like, hey, man, Pearl Jam's coming. We're going to go. And he was like, oh, that sounds good. He's not a huge Pearl Jam fan, but he was local, and it was an excuse to get down there and see him, and obviously to see the band. And so we hooked up tickets, and I flew down there, and we met up.
What was his and I'm sure he'll come into play later in this, but did he get a positive exposure out of this show? Was he converted from this, or was it like, hey, we had fun, that was cool?
Yeah, more so the hey, we had fun. He's not a diehard like maybe you and I are, but it was a good time. There were certainly some moments in there, and actually before I had asked him about his experience kind of heading into this recording session, and
sure, please do.
He said, like there wasn't anything like really specific that I remember, but like I just was in awe of the stamina of the band and like how much ass they kicked, for those 2 hours plus. So
I think that surprises a lot of people that come in from the outside. When you think about the concert experience, you think about, okay, well, they're going to play about, if they play 20 songs, that's a pretty good set. And then when they come back for an encore, it's like their 2 most popular songs, and then they're done. And maybe 90 minutes goes by, and you get a pretty solid show. That's the pretty generic way of doing it. But yeah, this is compared to other concerts, compared to your, insert random, 90s, 2000s band here. This is a marathon, and I can see a lot of people just being like, whoa, I did not expect it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. As someone who was sort of obsessed with the Dave Matthews Band in my 20s, and I toured all around with them, and I went to 30 some odd shows, and it was very coming to a Pearl Jam show. It was just like, whoa, because Dave Matthews, they play like, I don't know, 18 songs a night. I know they're longer, but like, when you get into a set list that's this deep, and obviously their Pearl Jam's catalog is just massive.
Right.
And it's always one of those things where, because they mix it up, you're like, oh man, tonight could be the night. What do they pull out of the hat? So, after listening to all the bootlegs and getting into that, and it just became like this thing. So
it's funny because my cousin is a Dave Matthews fan, and I'll kind of rag on him for that. I'm like, yeah, you guys, you get the hidden gems, and you can get surprises at your show, but you get 18 songs. How do you feel about that? Looking next to a Pearl Jam set where we're getting like 33 on average. I'm thinking to myself, if I got 18 songs out of Pearl Jam, I'd be kind of disappointed knowing what they do.
That's a great point. And actually, I had said something to my wife about that not too long ago. I was looking at some of the set lists from when I was touring around with them, and I was like, man, look, they only played like 18 songs tonight. And she was like, yeah, but they did a 20-minute version of 41, and like, I was like, yeah, but like, there's so much more. I want more songs.
Right.
So
I like the idea of having more songs instead of like extended long versions of things. So I'm with you on that. All right. Is everybody ready to get talking about the show?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. One note that I wanted to put out there before we get to talking about this little stretch in Florida, they did 4 shows to start this 2016 tour. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, I don't know if that's in order. They were both there. Tampa, which is a show that we did way back, probably 2 years ago now. And Jacksonville finished that little 4-show stretch. And the last time that they had played anything in Florida before that, you guys talked about 2012. 2012 in the U.S. was kind of a tour year for them. They did the Made in America Festival, and they played DeLuna Fest in Pensacola, Florida. So that was the last time before this little Florida run that they were in Florida. But the last time proper before then was in 2008, where they did a night in Tampa and they did a night at West Palm Beach. So it's pretty much for the Florida faithful. It's about 8 years since Pearl Jam had been there proper, no official 2013 Lightning Bolt tour. So the band did pretty good at getting all those dates in and making sure they kind of spread the wealth, because, Miami's further from Tampa and Tampa's further from Fort Lauderdale, and Jacksonville's not close to any of that stuff. So I think they spread the wealth pretty good there. Anything else outside of Florida? Like, what do you guys want to talk about Jacksonville at all? Because it's not a place I know very much about, but it seems like the area is at least interesting.
Yeah, it's all right. I've spent some time there. Obviously, visiting my friend down there, and he got married there, and so going down and getting on the beach. It's the Atlantic side. I'm kind of a Gulf snob myself. But it's nice beaches, and as you get into, before you even get to the beach, it's like if you're driving through town, it's kind of a concrete jungle. Honestly, a lot of strip malls, a lot of bail bondsmen.
That'll come up later,
a little later. But it's a nice town.
It's huge. Like the sprawl there is like, and we're in Atlanta where we know a lot about sprawl, but Jacksonville, I think we mentioned before we started recording, it's the largest land area city in the U.S. Like Duval County is just huge. Like you think about as far as square miles, it's bigger than New York City, the city limits, and Los Angeles and all that stuff. So just a huge area. And I think it's one of the things that'll come into play here is it's known for the military bases that are around there. That plays a big part in this too. And I think that was something that kind of turned me off a little bit, because this is kind of Pearl Jam in their like pro-military, support the troops like zone that they sometimes get into, which is, it's not my favorite. I'd prefer, the little angrier side. But it is what it is. You know, they're always going to do that. They're going to highlight those people, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. But that was something that, yeah, I mean, going back on it, it doesn't bother me as much, you know, knowing about it. But at the time, I was just kind of like, yeah, can we just get to more songs? Like, that doesn't really do it for me. But and that's probably just me, and I know the people there means a lot to them, so I get it. But that does play a big part in this as well, kind of the area around it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's easier for them to do it when there's not a war going on, and we've talked about times in 2006 where they're obviously very anti-war and they're not really doing this sort of thing. So there's not a lot going on, and I think that at Tampa they had mentioned that Thomas Young, his book was coming out around this time. So I think Eddie's relationship with Thomas Young, like they were very, very close. So I'm wondering if that was on his mind, and kind of going into Jacksonville and seeing all the Navy bases and everything like that, if that was something he was thinking about. So, all right.
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3 opens the show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 2. I seem to recognize your face. All won't seem familiar, yeah. I can't seem to place it. Can I find a candle of thought to light your name? Yeah, lifetimes they're catching on with me.
It's funny because I thought Jacksonville was a smaller city than like something like Miami or something like in Orlando or something like that. So I thought that opening with this was kind of a nod to sort of the smaller town, but like you said, it's the biggest landmass in America. That's not true. So maybe it's the opposite here.
Yeah, and almost, 900,000 people as well. Not exactly a small town, but
15,000 in the arena, which is a lot. That's a couple thousand less than a Madison Square Garden or a Wells Fargo Center in Philly.
Yeah, but just kind of thinking back to I mean, you hear the commercials on Sirius XM, Stone saying as soon as you start, they start playing that song, that hello, it's like kind of opens up the set list and gets things kicked off really nicely.
Yeah, it's also kind of a way for him to gauge the crowd too, because some of those early Florida shows, especially Miami, I think the crowd is not kind of up to where some of the crowds would be later on in the tour. And, Fort Lauderdale is kind of a weird area to play. So I think they were kind of gauging the crowd. In small towns, when they open with small town, it's a good way for them to kind of feel out how the night's going to go, how the crowd's going to go, because they can, like Chris, like you mentioned, that you get that hello and everybody tries to be as loud as they can be. I'm on the rail and I'm looking right at Stone, like on Stone's side, and we're all just screaming along right from the beginning, trying to make our presence felt. But yeah, it's a great opener. It's something that that they don't always do it in the big places, but and it may be a little bit of irony too. Like they might have heard that they do their research. They might have figured out that this was kind of the largest city limits area in the country, and like why don't we just open a small town and do a little dig at that there? Maybe something going on there.
It's funny because this tour, it felt like the slow burn opener was kind of thrown by the wayside, and I wonder if that came from that early onset of that Miami and Fort Lauderdale shows where the crowds weren't really in it, because I think that Tampa show, the opener was Why Go. The night after this is obviously Greenville, the opener's Corduroy. A couple weeks later at MSG, they would open up back-to-back nights with Go and then Corduroy. I think Philly both nights was opening with Once, so there was a trend here of opening with some of the more faster songs, and this is one of the very few from this tour that they actually opened up with slower songs. So very interesting to think about. And going right into a nice little section here, big chunk, Mind Your Manners, Hail Hail, Last Exit, Lightning Bolt. I liked Mind Your Manners. I thought Mind Your Manners sounded pretty good. He had some range, but you can kind of tell his voice sounded a little strained on the final yell. And then it kind of carried over a little bit into Last Exit. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, and it didn't continue throughout the show, but it felt like very early on he was very short-winded almost.
Yeah, I don't know if I really thought that he was short-winded or whatever. It just felt like, you know, that stretch of songs is energetic. You know, it's got a lot of energy there. Hail, Hail, Last Exit, Lightning Bolt. You know, like it just felt like it wasn't quite there, right? You know, it looked good on paper, but you know, it was just lacking a little bit of oomph, I guess.
Yeah, for me, Hail Hail, you know, was the one in that third spot that really kicked in for me. Like, I'm like, oh shit, no code this early, here we go. You know, and that was the one that for me, when I really started to get into it, and I thought that was awesome. And then, yeah, I think you're right, Last Exit, I think he lets kind of the crowd take some of the parts there to kind of gauge it out, and maybe his voice wasn't quite warmed up yet. But yeah, I think like Chris said, like this is a great way, you know, small town, get everybody in, and then punch them in the face with this little 4-song section. And I think Ed really started to feel it in Lightning Bolt. It's got a really good solo. It's kind of extended. Ed's doing the windmill thing, doing the Pete Townsend moves. So he kind of changes that lyric, you know, instead of to the Great Northwest, it's to Jacksonville. So kind of throwing in the little nod to the city there. So I think, yeah, they were. It just took them a little longer to get warmed up than usual. Maybe.
Yeah.
Their first trip to Jacksonville, and only trip.
That's very true. And later on, they'll say, "This is where we're going to retire," or "This is where we're going to have our retirement show," which is, I don't think maybe they hit every single city that they've ever done whenever they decide to do a retirement tour, but maybe they do go back to Jacksonville. Who the hell knows? All right, so that was a pretty jam-packed section right there. I think a lot of songs that you want in that early onset, as we mentioned, Mind Your Manners, Hail Hail, Last Exit, Lightning Bolt, and it brought you into a little bit of a cool down before kind of the middle section, Nothing Man. And this is interesting to me because I did some math and I thought to myself, and this mostly happened during the deprogrammed episode where Nothing Man advanced into the final 40. I said to myself, when was the freaking last time we covered this song? Wrigley of 2013 was the last time we did.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
It's criminal. That's criminal.
Yeah. So I mentioned in the Toronto episode and the Binaural episode that we were going to do some song appreciation this year for songs that we don't cover a lot or haven't covered in a long time. And today I'm giving that nod to Nothing Man.
Wars divided, there's nothing left to subtract. Some words when spoken, that cannot be taken back. Walks on his own with thoughts he can't help thinking. The future's above, but in the past he's slow and sinking. Caught a bolt to lightning, curse the day he let it go.
I'm leaving the floor open. You could talk about this version. You could talk about your relationship with the song, but just speak poetic about this song and how great it is.
Yeah, I thought this rendition was quite good. You know, it was interesting because he hasn't talked yet, really. and to go into that sixth song and just kind of like that slow burn down and kind of get into that ballad type feel. It was very it was great. I mean, if you listen to the bootleg and obviously the video that's online now, it's just a great song. You know, it's and you can hear the crowd a bit in the boot. You know, they definitely understood and got into it.
I absolutely love this song. Like, especially you mentioned going back and doing the deprogram. Like, this song, if you haven't listened to Vitalogy, just go back and just the guitar tone of that first chord when it hits you, like, it's just
kind of
perfect
sound that gets into it too. It's so good.
Oh, it's one of my favorite beginnings to a song, and yeah, I think it's one of the most underrated songs in their catalog. You know, we've talked about a few like Save You and you know, some of the stuff off of Binaural and Riot Act, but Nothing Man I think is one that doesn't get a lot of love. But I love when they kind of break up this first section with a song that you don't expect like this. Like they've thrown in like an Angel or an Off He Goes or kind of something to throw you off, like Chris mentioned, like a ballad, like a slower one. Like a lot of times you'll get like even like a Low Light or something off one of those slower ones off of Yield here, and it's just great. Ed sounds good. I think like I mentioned, he finally warmed up during Lightning Bolt and it sounds great. And this one I was, you know, the front row just blown away. Like, and again we talk about how they mix up these songs. You know, you start off with verses, you go to Lightning Bolt, No Code, Vitalogy, back to Lightning Bolt, Vitalogy again, and you go on, and like the next few songs are going to mix up the albums even more. It's just perfect set construction for an early part of the main set like this. I was in heaven when they were playing this. It was fantastic.
I feel like every album got representation at the show. Am I right on that? And some more than others.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, because Riot Act got something and Avocado got something. Backspacer, Binaural. Yeah, everything was hit. That's very rare to get all the albums at least hitting one song. So interesting, very interesting. And yeah, I'll wax poetic a little bit. I love this song, and live, it's just one of the ones that you kind of forget the content of it for a second, and you kind of forget that it's a little, I guess, depressing in a way, and sort of kind of makes you think about things. And if you're thinking about the past and thinking about past relationships, it puts you in a different mindset. But man, when you're able to sing along with this song live and you're kind of reaching Ed's vocal points there, ooh, this is one of my favorites. And it's funny because they didn't take it took a little bit of it took some time for them to get used to this song, because when Vitalogy came out, they didn't really play it in 95 at all. They played it, I guess, for the first time in the Bridge School show, the first time since the album had come out. And then once 98 came, they started playing it a little bit, but it wasn't a very common song, maybe until around before the Backspacer or Avocado. So this is kind of a late stage Pearl Jam song, kind of in the same vein as Low Light. So great that it's around, and great that we get it a lot. So thankfully we got it on this show, and hopefully we get to do this more this year. Who knows, but at least we got the appreciation part out of it. So,
and Chris and I were 2 for 2 because they had played this in Music Midtown in Atlanta 2012 too.
There you go. Yep. Not too bad. So Ed welcomes everyone to the last night of the Florida tour. Here we are in Jacksonville, where he said he'd never been before. Talks about meeting new friends and friends that are veterans. And he gives a shout out to a friend, Colonel John McDonough. It's not the first time he's been mentioned at a show. Chris, when was the other time he was mentioned? I'll let you say it because I didn't realize what it was beforehand.
Yeah, it was the Garden in 2010. You were there, man.
And the same song was dedicated for that moment. So
which is interesting, because it was when Ed, tips his hat to somebody, and I think back to like Milwaukee or for the Yield show, he's talking about Aaron Rodgers, which Sorry, I'm a Vikings fan. And they go right into Given to Fly. You know, that's kind of like the song that you would expect, you know, after he talks about somebody and gives that sort of praise. But no, they went into Army Reserve and both times for Colonel John McDonough.
Yeah, Army Reserve is an interesting one. And this kind of section here, Army Reserve into Given to Fly, then into Rival. That is a sandwich you don't get very often. And there's a school of thought here, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, maybe it works a little more if Army Reserve goes into Rival and then you build with Given to Fly into Corduroy. But I kind of see where they're coming from with this, because Given to Fly in between gets all of those people like your friend who is kind of, you know, the casual Pearl Jam fan. Army Reserve and Rival might just kind of sink them out of this, and you got to put something in between to get them revved up during that time where, you know, they're playing deep cuts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But it did feel a little fractured. I mean, but from my perspective as a you know, pretty big fan, you know, you would expect those two songs to kind of be together and then go into Given to Fly. But you know, it works. And Rival's not a song that they play very often. You know, it looks like they hadn't played it since 2010.
Yeah, it had been 135 shows since they had played.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a little treat, you know.
And 30 shows since they played Army Reserve, and that's a good chunk too. And Army Reserve, that was the 29th time. Rival was the 21st. So a lot of little things from the show. Like we said, they're plugging in every single album here. A lot of these are collector's items. If you like collector's items, you probably like this show, because you're not gonna get Rival at too many shows in this era unless you were lucky enough to hit the Toronto show that we covered a couple of weeks back. So anything on the performances, I thought Army Reserve is just not my favorite song, and it's just not my favorite live song, because if I were there, it would have been almost unrecognizable to me the way that the progression of the song goes. I think it would have been until Ed hit the lyrics and I would have known what it was. Rival, I thought, sounded fantastic. I thought Rival, like, it's not Pink Pop 2000 good, but Ed was up there on that. I thought that was an excellent performance of Rival.
It wasn't. I mean, when they started playing it, I was like, "What? No way!" You know, like, and at this juncture in the set list too, it's like, whoa, just totally kind of caught us off guard. But yeah, I thought it was pretty quality.
Yeah, Given to Fly for me is the one. Like we had just adopted our son. You know, I told that story when we did Greenville, and we, like, maybe a month before this. So Given to Fly is the one for me that hit me super hard and is, like, pretty emotional. And I think I even remember, you know, the drums starting for Rival, and even it took me a second to be like, wait, what song is this? And then, you know, the guitar scene, like, oh shit, and, like, this is one you never expect to hear in Rival. And so that was definitely cool. But think about it too, you know, we kind of talked about how, you know, there's kind of you kind of get there's the whole military aspect of the show and the troops, but how sneaky is it for Ed to sneak in the two anti-gun songs in this set list? You get Rival and Glorified G a little bit later, and I think maybe a little bit sneaking the middle finger in there as well to the military bases as well. Like we're gonna give you the shout out on the stage. We're gonna secretly be pulling it back under the table. So I think that just occurred to me that's perfect for them. I gotta think that was done on purpose.
Very interesting. I think you're onto something there. Moving onward into sort of the middle of the set here, Ed dedicates the next one to all the travelers, Italians, Greeks. We'll talk about Greeks later. Aussies, South Africans, Canadians, and anybody that doesn't believe in borders or boundaries or big bank accounts. And it's a little setting forth into corduroy. I thought that setting forth was kind of cool because it was almost a little bit more of an atmospheric way to get into corduroy instead of, and I kind of can make the comparison to Interstellar Overdrive a little bit, that at least it had some sort of transition into it. I like this though. I think it could work either way, where you get a really fast intro going into corduroy and then, busting out in song. But this kind of is more of a sing-along going into corduroy, which is honestly, this version is a very sing-along version. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a really quick song, obviously, and I was doing a little research, obviously, before this show, this recording session, and looking at Setting Forth, there's really two songs that come right after it, and it's Not For You and it's Corduroy. 13 for Not For You and 12 for Corduroy, and it just it's a good little segue.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Cameron. I think the story is that was his idea, that he came to the band with like, hey, we could take that song and kind of use it and play it in the shows. And yeah, I love Setting Forth. That's one of my favorite songs from Into the Wild. I think the message completely fits in with the Pearl Jam show. Like you mentioned, you can always dedicate it to the people that are traveling. And yeah, I think it works great. I love when they do this. I love when it's in front of Not For You. I think they could use it more often. I think those aren't the only two. I think they've used it with different ones and all over the place. So
yeah,
I think it's great. Yeah,
it feels like we had covered one where they did the transition in Not For You not very long ago, and I thought that sounded really, really good, if I'm not mistaken, but can't remember what show that was from. Corduroy, I mean, you're getting, I feel like, the two songs, Army Reserve and Rival, are not going to be crowd pleasers. They're going to be for the deep cut, the inside people, the people that have been to every show. Those people are going to love them. The casual people, not so much. You bring them back with Corduroy. Did this feel like it was more that the crowd was back in the game here, that the energy was back?
Oh yeah, for sure. And Ed even said that, at the end of the song, he's like, finally felt you on that one, and it did. It rocked. It was high energy, and it was a great way to kind of wake a few people up.
After Corduroy going into Even Flow, there was a little speech here. And of course, I don't have any notes on it because it wasn't in the YouTube video. So somebody fill me in on all of Ed's words.
Yeah, it was actually a really cool story. He's talking about how, we have Mike and Stone, and how, early on in the band's lifetime, that Stone was kind of, he wrote all the songs and he was kind of slave driving. But then he got into, Mike and Stone and how their wives were pregnant at the same time, by their respective mates, he says. And then, one of them, they're due a month apart, and one of them has theirs 2 weeks early, the other has 2 weeks late, and here they are, born on the same day.
Wow.
Pearl Jam twins, which is incredible. It's just incredible.
That is so
you got
cool.
that synergy with those guitar players. They got to be on the same page.
That's right. That's right. And they must be like 10-year-old kids now, right? Something like that.
I think they were 9 at that during that show.
Okay, so they're teenagers now. I wonder, this is the time. Start getting the garage open. I know it's quarantine. I know they're taking quarantine very seriously, but after this is all over, maybe they're doing some sessions with their dads and starting to go over some songs. That'd be very interesting. Maybe Ray Cameron join them a little bit. He might be a little older, but Olivia can sing for them. Who knows? Could be a super group of the kids. So that's very interesting. Goes into even flow.
The thing that stuck out to me was Mike immediately goes into the crowd for a solo behind the back, and people are kind of grabbing the guitar, and like no one's really sure if they should touch the frets. Like they don't want to like mess up the solo, because there's like a lot of very tentative guitar touching. But yeah, he was feeling it, and then he goes back and like does the thing that I always love, where he like goes up and kind of like gets up at the amp and does the feedback thing and really starts to feel it. So this was great, and then you get a little bit of throwback to the 2006, a little Matt fucking Cameron solo there, a little tease of it.
Is really good at this point in time, and I know that
it's better than Fort Lauderdale.
Better than Fort Lauderdale. Didn't peak there, but yeah, I know my buddy was definitely enjoying it, and it was a great performance.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Ed says right afterwards. He says, I hope that the energy didn't peak in Fort Lauderdale. That might have been a wink, nudge, nudge to what was going on at that show, but there's more pandering, and like mentioned before, they said they're going to do their farewell tour there. So then they go into this. The freaking earth. What and how and what is going on? Because if you're down there, John, the people have to be freaking out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I never thought I would get to hear this song. And I got to hear it twice this year, which just amazing. And I love the song. It's one of my favorites. I can't believe it hasn't made any of these albums since 2006. Like, yeah, just immediately mind blown. I think I probably jumped 2 feet up in the air when I heard that first note being played, and being like, oh shit, because we'd already gotten Army Reserve, we'd already gotten Nothing Man, you'd already gotten Rival, we'd already gotten Hail Hail. So I'm like, okay, so we've already got to kind of hit our fill of these kind of like collector rare songs, but to get this was, oh my god, outstanding, and a great version of it too.
So good. I mean, the guitar at the end, just a great version of the song. Love it. 13 times it's only been played.
Yeah, and they're all kind of different. Like, I think that's one reason why they haven't been able to nail it down. If you can listen to all 13, and they're all kind of have subtle little differences on them. I think it's kind of interesting. I'd love to do an evolution on that someday.
It's a complicated song, and honestly, I think it might be one of the most complicated that Ed's ever written. I can't think of sort of a song that Ed's very, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, end. And that's how he writes his songs. But this is just, there's so many different elements, and Ed plays a bigger role in this song than usual. I wonder if that had to go into him not liking any of the recorded versions. But man, there's something about this song that when they go into that sort of solo section, and it's a big chunk of that, where it's 3 to 4 minutes maybe where they're kind of jamming out, and they break back into the verse. And when you get that moment, that's one of those where you feel you want to erupt at that when they go back.
So good.
Since Avocado, I love to hear every time they've attempted as a studio. I'm sure there's some great versions out there that we haven't heard.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
it easily could have replaced Buckle Up.
Hey, watch it.
Picking fights you don't want to pick there.
Watch it.
At least he didn't say retrograde.
Right.
No, that's a good one.
All right, we mentioned this before, but a little section, Glorified G into Unthought Known. Glorified G is kind of playing into what you said before, a little bit of the anti-gun situation here, and it's also what's the next night. A couple nights later, they're going to be playing in Greenville, so is this a practice round?
It would appear. I mean, we got Glorified G into Unthought Known, and then the back-to-back record songs. I think they were just using us as guinea pigs.
Right. Let's see. And this is the one I specifically remember what we discussed during our show that we did on that. And you said that in Glorified G, they kind of looked at each other. Mike and Stone made a look at each other after the song ended. Mike was like, "We got through it."
He did the fist bump. Yeah, I was going to mention that. He kind of pumped his fist like, "Yeah, we did it." But so yeah, I think they definitely knew what was going on, and I'm sure there was a conversation backstage. It's like, okay, which one of those do we need to work on? And I'm sure someone stood up and went, we probably need to do Glorified G one more time before we do that. So yeah, I gotta think that was it. Kind of for two reasons is on here: the anti-war, anti-gun thing, and then the practice for the Versus show a few days later. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a good one to practice on because, you don't get it a lot. And if you play something like WMA, that completely shifts the course of the show. You can't really do that. A Dissident would have worked earlier in the set, maybe something else, maybe a Blood late in the set, but they played Blood in Tampa, so that could have been another sign of what's to come. And, maybe a Rats would have been cool. But I think Glorified G was the one. I think, like you said, it all kind of worked out as planned.
People know Glorified G, being one of the first couple of records, but after Of the Earth, I think a lot of people did not know that one. So you gotta come back with some. You gotta come back with some that people know. I'm actually surprised it wasn't like something like a Jeremy, which we get later. I'm surprised it wasn't like a big hit at this point. But kind of Unthought Known serves that same purpose. It's kind of got that kind of pop rock backspacer feel to it. So it's gonna get the crowd back into it. Nothing wrong with it.
A backspacer followed by a lightning bolt song, and like you said, they're kind of going through some more uncommon stuff before they're going to get to the final two songs, which are pretty much known by everybody. The biggest surprise from this show was how much I like to let the records play.
Mm-hmm.
Not a song that really clicks with me, and maybe it's because it's a little deep on an album I don't listen to a lot, but Ed is so excited. He starts in the beginning. He's like, "It's a swamp song for the Everglades. It's a swamp. It's a swamp." And
There's a swampy kind of Everglades thing for you. When the kingdom comes, he puts his records on, and with his best of thumb, he has played. With the volume up, he goes and fills his cup.
I'm just digging it. It's got a really good groove to it, and like it's got a good sound. The band seems to be vibing off it. Yeah, I'm liking it.
I agree. It definitely has that swamp feel to it, that sort of bluesy influence to it. And and it isn't a super popular song, I guess, but I like it. It's a good track.
Only played 21 times. This was the 19th time, and then the next night would be the 20th.
Yeah. And again, we should mention too, a great Mike solo, I think, just lifts it up to a different level that he really takes off and goes somewhere really cool with it that you don't usually hear. So yeah, this is great. And then you get, and most of the time when you get Let the Records Play, you're going to get the next one as well. So that was definitely cool.
That's right. And
does anybody remember records?
Does anybody remember records?
John, it's funny because you've actually, now that I think about it,
Yep.
3 shows in a row, you've gotten this combo because you got it at
That's
Memphis, you got it here, and then you got it at Greenville again. So that's
right.
So
right.
we're
Hey, no complaints. Love it.
okay. I was gonna say, was it one of those things? That was like, okay, let's see if we can get something else. I know
No,
Record Store Day.
I'm not that jaded for it yet. So yeah, I'll take it.
I'll take
Absolutely.
Spin the Black Circle live every single night.
Yeah, it just rips. The thing I remember most about this, and I think I mention it every time, is McCready running around the stage in a circle. He's got that wireless amp hooked up, and he's playing Being the Needle, like running around the record, running all around the stage, or even behind the drums. So that was super cool. Yeah, just love watching Stone on these. Just fantastic.
Easing up for Record Store Day, which I don't think they had a release. They did not have a release of Record Store Day.
Was that not the State of Love and Trust Breath year? The 7-inch, maybe?
I don't think so.
It was one of those years that Breath, State of Love and Trust 7-inch made it, but it could have been the next one. Yeah.
That's another story for another day. We'll put the mystery man on that one. So we said that there were a couple uncommon songs and some songs that maybe people don't really know, but you're finishing the set, Spin the Black Circle and Porch. You can't ask for too much better than that. And Porch gets that kind of very quiet riffy intro where it's just kind of Ed and they kind of pause before really digging into the song. I thought this was really cool crowd moment where Ed's kind of pointing and he's grabbing a sign during this, and the sign looks like it has a full set list written out on it. Did you get like a firsthand glimpse of this big orange poster board?
I think I remember them passing it around kind of before the show started, because you get in to GA at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then you have kind of a couple hours to kill before the show starts. And I think people were kind of like, oh, what's that? Because it's bright orange. And yeah, I do remember that there were a bunch of songs written on it, and I think it was one of those that, like, some of the stuff they're never gonna play. Like, I think it was this person had just written down all of the rare songs that, like, they wanted to hear, and, like, yeah, it just was never gonna happen. But they gave it a shot, so more power to you. But yeah, Porch is cool because it's Green Lantern time. Jeff and Mike, it's their side is always fun to watch on that because they're always playing around with it, trying to knock each other in the head, and like. Jeff's kind of like doing his lean back, and yeah, it's just really cool. And you get Ed kind of teases like he's going to do a big stage dive, and yeah, just a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely good energy to end the set, and I feel like, geez, at least four of the 5 shows I've been to, Porch just ended the first set.
It pretty much is the most common occurrence now.
Yeah, it's a great track though.
All right, so we are at the encore. We're going to take a break for a second and talk a little bit about what's going on at Patreon. Chris, you've been a patron for a long time now. I'm going to let you sell the people. Why should they become patrons of our show?
Oh man, it's how many countless hours do you guys spend, putting together all this great content for us?
At least 3.
Yeah, I mean, at least 3 a week. Yeah, but it's. I mean, just to think about the effort you guys go into, and all the, all the great bootlegs, and it's just, I mean, $5 a month or $10 a month. It's like, dude, there's a lot less entertaining things that you spend your money on, and this is I'm happy to be the patron of Live in Four Legs.
We're happy to have you, man.
Thanks.
And yeah, like you actually, you saw that we switched the tiers. You went to the Horizon leg. You were the first person to do it. You didn't even know what it was. You're like, all right, I'll be the Horizon leg, and you wanted to one up the next person. So, and obviously,
it's just because purple's my favorite color.
And obviously, that Horizon leg tier is all going into what we're doing for liveonfourlegs.com, the almanac, the chronology, whatever we want to call it at this point. Basically, we're trying to make a Pearl Jam Wikipedia here, and we're working on it. We're working on the kinks, and if that's something that you want to get involved with, obviously Patreon is a good way to start. Patreon.com/liveonfourlegs, or head over to the Patreon app and search Live on Four Legs. But we have the 3 tiers. The bonus leg is going to get you everything that is on that app. Anything that we post, you're going to be able to listen to it. You're going to be able to interact with us, join forums, whatever is available, you're in. The Giga leg, you get to come in. You get to pick a show like Chris is doing today. You get to talk about your favorite show, talk about your favorite moments. And the Horizon leg, you're going to kind of be a part of this website and be a part, kind of given an executive producer role. And what Chris is actually going to be doing, probably going to release it the next day after this. So, expect it to go down on Thursday, but Chris is going to do a full profile episode on solely his Pearl Jam fandom. So that's another cool thing. That's another thing we're starting to do now, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be a lot of fun just listening to some stories and getting some laughs and getting some good moments in there. So if those are all things that you're interested in, head on over to patreon.com/liveonfourlegs or Live on Four Legs on the Patreon app. We do have 2 new patrons this week, but there's 2 patrons that I want to shout out because I didn't shout them out the week before. They switched over from bonus leg to Giga leg, and I mentioned all the people that switched over to the Horizon leg last week, but I want to give a shout out to the people that joined the Giga leg, Matt Thompson and Randy Cross. Thank you so much to you both.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That's
upgrading
fantastic.
there. So the 2 new patrons to thank, Gunter Habits and Robert Chad Clemens. So welcome to the Patreon team. Welcome to Live on Four Legs team, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, great.
All right. We're at the encore here. And right away, Ed gets a pillowcase thrown on stage and it says, "Play Ghost for the Greek." And he says, "I'll sleep on it," because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? It's a pillowcase. Supposed to put a pillow in it, then you sleep on it. That's
this dad joke, Ed.
dad
Yeah,
joke.
I love it. Yeah.
Got to get ready for dad jokes there. And then he makes a Jacksonville joke about the bail bondsman's offices. So that's part of the area. Like you said, it's kind of a concrete jungle over there. So
No, we've got those in Atlanta too. We know all about it.
I know. I've been around Hartford. I know what it's like. So it leads to a trio of Ed solo songs here, and I'm just going to go down the line. Everyone had kind of a dedication towards it. So I Won't Back Down was dedicated to of course, his favorite Floridian, Tom Petty, and probably I think they played it one other time this year. So this was one of the last times that they had played I Won't Back Down before Petty had passed away. So that's important to note there. I'm a Patriot, dedicated to a father of a veteran who just died, and Just Breathe is for Heidi. There is a girl named Heidi that's on she's on social media accounts all over the place. I see her a lot. I wonder if that's the same Heidi. If it is, hi Heidi. I know she knows of the show and maybe she's a listener. So very cool to get a shout out there. This section, what'd you guys think? Because this is all solo Ed except for Boom joining in on Just Breathe. So is this getting you guys fired up? I thought I Won't Back Down was great, but then you get into Patriot and it's still Ed. It's still a little slow. Just Breathe. It's not really progressing to, something bigger with the band. What'd you guys think of this start to the encore?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it was one of those slow burns again. I did like I Won't Back Down. I thought it was a good version of that. It being in Tom's home state, and definitely a lot of crowd participation. You can hear people, all around me singing along. So I thought that was great. I'm a Patriot. First time that I've heard that one, but what's interesting, I think I've heard it 2 or 3 more times since then, and it's again, going back to the military angle of Jacksonville. Not surprising at all that we see that there in the first encore.
I just want to real quick give a shout out to everybody that pitched in this past week. We were one of our listeners, Sam, got in touch with us and said, "Hey, is there any way that we can get rid of this this video that's on YouTube?" And it was maybe this version of I'm a Patriot. I'm not sure which one. It was Ed Solo though, and it was cut to images of the Confederate flag. So everybody did their part, and we reported the song and we got it banned, and it is no longer on YouTube. So everybody give yourselves a round of applause. Fantastic work. Sometimes the Pearl Jam community can really come into play, and this was big, really big thank you to you guys, because we just didn't want that being a representation of the band, and the band didn't want that either. I know firsthand that the band definitely didn't want that. So thank you.
Yes, especially with the tone of everything that's been going on this past week, and that's going to keep going the next couple of weeks. Yeah, we knew that that they're not going to want to be associated with that type of thing. Especially with like I said, with everything that's been going on. But yeah, for me, absolutely, I Won't Back Down is the highlight. And Jacksonville is the closest to Gainesville, which is Tom's hometown. It's only probably about an hour away, closest of the 4 Florida shows to it. So you knew they were going to play that for him. And yeah, I thought it was great. The crowd did a really good job on it. Like you said, Chris was in the back. He could hear everybody singing along. I was up front. I could hear everybody singing along. It was fantastic. And I was, however, hoping that when they started Just Breathe, that Jeff would come out and do his bass line. But unfortunately, it was not to happen at this one. But yeah, I'll get it someday. But yeah, nothing wrong with it, to get him to give the little band a break. They still got a lot of songs to go, so I get it. But yeah, didn't mind at all. A couple of covers and you'd love to get a Footsteps or something a little crazier there, but we already had so many rare ones in the main set. I didn't mind at all. I was still riding off that.
That was definitely a point that I was thinking of too. And you're about to get another rare one coming in a song or two, so you'll forget about this section. The only thing I like it when everybody's involved, where Ed isn't taking up the spotlight for 3 straight songs. I thought that maybe that was a little bit much, and getting Matt's backup vocals on Just Breathe and Jeff's bass in on Just Breathe. Those are highlights to me. And unfortunately we didn't get them here, but we've seen it a billion times where they have. So just one of the ones that we didn't. In between the next deep cut that we're going to talk about, they played Jeremy. I think you needed a big hit after that to kind of get that crowd back into it, back and energized. Did it feel energized after this? It sounded pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I know my buddy definitely understood that. This was one of the hits. Not being a huge PJ fan, but yeah, it was a good version of it, and definitely feel a little more energy than coming out of those 3 slow ones from the back.
And yeah, even if you've heard it 1,000 times, when that ending kicks in and everybody kicks in with the woes at the end, it's still really cool, and it's still a good moment. And you're still trying to scream as loud as you can. It hits still just as hard, and so it's great. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And you're transitioning into the deep cut called Ghost. We've only covered it a very, very few times on this show. And one of the times that we covered it, it was a dedication to the same person that it was dedicated to here. Dimmy the Greek. You guys probably know who he is. He kind of officiates some boards and some Facebook pages, and everybody kind of knows who he is. He's been to a ton of shows. You see the Greek flag all over the place. So the band knows of him and wants to give him the nod because Ghost is his favorite song. So, and it's kind of popularized as being a song when you think of Ghost. And if you're in that kind of part of that community that know him and know people that know him, everybody kind of knows that Ghost is his song. So great performance too. I didn't think this wasn't a Slash performance, and we've heard versions of this that were like, okay, yeah, I get where they're coming from, why they have only played it 20 times at this point, but this was a really good one. I thought that I liked this Ghost.
Honestly, I mean, it being my second show, it wasn't one of those songs where I was like, oh, you know, like really super stoked to hear it. I was like, oh, this is, you know, this is one of those that I'm like, I probably need to brush up on this one a little bit more.
Yeah.
But no, it's become one of the highlights of the bootleg for sure, and one memory I'll certainly take.
It's funny that two of the deeper cuts are some of the best tracks from this. Rival and Ghost are both fantastic.
Yeah. It's cool too because do you guys know what was crossed off for this on the set list?
I actually don't. I didn't look it up. What was it?
It's the Fixer. They were originally going to play the Fixer here.
Oh, wow.
And it gets crossed off for Ghost, so I was definitely happy to hear that. So I got to think, you know, when whoever threw that pillowcase up in the encore break, you know, they kind of did an ad lib there and switched it up. But yeah, if you can go back and find the original set list with Fixer crossed off and Ghost in there, but he does change the lyric to, you know, Dimitri talks to me. There was a guy about halfway back in the GA that had a Ghost like costume on, that was wearing like a sheet. You hear him kind of go, Keely, there's a ghost
in the middle.
Like, so they had him up on the big screen, I think, and I think the word going around was that was Dimitri, because I think he was supposed to be at the show, but I think later on they found out maybe it wasn't, but who knows. Just a super cool moment, and cool for them to play it. I definitely, you know, it's one of those that you never think you're going to get, so again, super cool. A lot of rare ones at the show. Love it.
Yeah, for sure. For somebody going to their fifth show, somebody going to their second show, you got...
Yeah, another underrated one too, I think Crop Duster and Ghost, I think both great songs that they don't play enough.
Yeah, you guys can kind of have a feather under your cap, and when you trade information with your fellow people that have been to 20 shows, maybe they've never seen it, because I've never seen Ghost. I've been to 20 shows. I've never seen Rival. I've been to 20 shows. So you just never know. You know, you never know what you're gonna hit on any certain night. So, and that's one of the things that kind of rings true about the show, that it just has these gems in there that you
absolutely. And I kicked myself for not going to Greenville, you know, but yeah, there's a lot of gems in this set list and feathers in our caps that we definitely can be appreciative of.
That's right. So you're finishing off the encore one with Evolution and Better Man. There was a fun moment in Evolution. Good toss and catch here, where Ed tosses the mic into the crowd, gives the fan a moment where he's doing the whoa whoa ohs, and Ed liked it. Ed was a fan.
I was so jealous that wasn't me. I wished I had been, 10 feet to the left. That would have been cool, but yeah, not to have happened.
It feels like Ed favors Mike's side more than he favors Stone's side when it comes to a crowd like that. And unfortunately, like, Stone's side is easier to get to, so maybe he's I don't know what the thought process is behind it. There's probably no thought process, but just something you notice.
I mean, I had my moment with him in Charlotte and in Columbia, so I've had my time. everybody gets their 15 minutes, I guess.
For sure. In between songs, though, Ed points out somebody's shirt. It might have been the same person. I don't know. I'm not sure, but
I think it was. Yeah,
it was the same person. He has a shirt that says Keith Richards for president, and it says, he ain't gonna die, and if Ed was gonna vote for a guy with a whole bunch of money who hasn't lived a similar life to anybody else in the last 40 years, I suppose I'll vote for him. Obviously, that's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to who.
And he calls over Mike too. He sees the shirt and he goes, Mike, come over here, look at this, because Mike is the Stones guy. And the reaction on Mike's face, he does kind of like a double take, like, what? Oh, me? You're calling out me? What's going on? Like, it's a really, really funny moment.
So then we get Better Man, and Ed gives a shout out in the crowd for singing in the first chorus because it's sounding real good. This is one of those moments that feels like you're closing out the first set, and the crowd is on top of their game. The band is on top of their game. The Save It for Later tag is an actual lyrical Save It for Later tag instead of just some Don't Run Away back and forth, and then ending with a ton of windmills. Great moment from this show.
Don't mean to cry to my mother, but let me come to a decision on it. Sooner or later, you'll hit the deck, you'll get found out. Save it for later, don't run away, don't let me down. Save it for later, you'll hit the deck, you'll get found out. Sooner or later, don't run away, don't let me down. Don't run away, don't let me down. Don't run away, don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't run away. 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 Don't run away.
What a great way to close out that first encore. So much energy. I mean, again, the crowd around me, all singing at the top of their lungs. This just incredible.
Yeah, and I think I always like to look for those little moments where you get two band members that kind of like team up and kind of play off each other a little bit. You get Ed and Mike.
Right.
But when Ed's got the guitar on, they're playing. They kind of like get down low and kind of playing off each other. It's a really cool moment. And Ed, does the "We're Not Worthy" bow, and the Save It for Later has kind of an angry start to it. It kind of felt like that was a little charged, a little more than usual. He almost was kind of like spitting that first line out of it. You don't normally get that. So yeah, Better Man, great way to finish off this encore. Fantastic.
For sure. Yeah, highlight from the show, absolutely. Now we're on to the second encore, coming back out. I mean, Better Man's a good way to close, but you got a lot more to go. I think there's 7 more songs in this set, a couple more gems. The first one that's going to be up here is another that's kind of a checklist song. You don't get it every single show, and especially the way that they're going to do it is turning around to the back. So Chris, you said you were in the back, right?
Not that back.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was in the other back.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but no, definitely he bought some time with telling some stories, and while they got set up and played to the back behind the stage.
Yeah, that was a weird story, like changing love to live. Like
that was weird.
It didn't feel like it went anywhere. But then he refers back to it at the very end of the night after Ledbetter, and it kind of felt like he thought there was going to be like an emotional kind of moment to it, but it was just kind of like, okay,
right.
So your phone changes, like you can turn that off. Like everybody was kind of like, huh.
This is a case
didn't
of
really-
the Gen
didn't
X
really
are not understanding
Yeah.
technology.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Fucking duck is one thing, but love and live, I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah. But again, like again to the back, like they had a separate drum set. Like they've you know it was professional at this point. Like they've got a whole other setup back there, so they can just like leave, go do the thing, and they don't have to spend any time. Like I could only see Ed because he was kind of standing on the drum riser a little bit, but I couldn't even see the rest of the band. So yeah, it's a treat for those people because they've had to sit and watch their backs the whole night. So and to get Smile, it's normally a Last Kiss or a Small Town or.
I was going to say, was this a surprise?
Oh yeah, Smile, absolutely great choice, love it.
And the other song that they usually do is Elderly Woman, which obviously isn't in the set. So when they turned around, did you automatically assume it was going to be Last Kiss?
I think so. Yeah, I think I was ready for it. But yeah, the Smile is, again, anytime you get anything off of No Code, I'm 2 thumbs up, all in. So love it.
I thank God it wasn't Last Kiss. I just want to say
I've had that moment too, where like I knew they were turning around to the back, and I was actually in the back. They did it a couple of times on that 2013 tour, and I kind of thought when they were going to do it, all right, here's Last Kiss. I can take a breather or take a break, and then they would do Elderly Woman instead. I'm like, okay, I'm into this. I like this. This is good. So change it up a little bit. Play different songs for the back. I like it indeed. And the harmonica sounded really just vibrant on this version. I thought that the harmonica sounded really good. Jeff's solo sounded fantastic in this. Yeah, this is a cool version of Smile for sure. You don't get it. Honestly, after this, they start playing it a little more 8 times after this performance, which is pretty good considering that, from 25 years on, it's only been played 77 times. So that's not a lot. But 8 times after 2016, the song has kind of found its favor, it seems. Once follows up, and Ed teased that up by saying this is a little fairy tale off the first record. Once would come into play in a couple of weeks when they're doing the Philly shows, obviously. But he puts on an orange hat that somebody was actually offering him during Porch, if you saw that in the video, and he puts it on. And like you said before, people are throwing stuff. People are throwing hats and shirts and pillowcases and posters. And it seems like they're just like, okay, cool. New gift. Cool. Awesome.
They could have put up a flea market after the show for all the stuff that was thrown on stage. Yeah, it was nonstop.
Yeah, and I think they crossed off a cover for this to play once in this set.
What was it? Was it Sonic Reducer? I feel like I saw Sonic Reducer was supposed to be a part of this.
I think it was Rain or Me.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Because that's not one they really played in this era too much. That's a lot different. Smile Into Once is a completely different. I wonder if they were sort of feeding off what the crowd was. If that was a, going backstage and sort of figuring it out. Like you said, they took a little while before they got back on stage.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a hit. I mean, putting in 10 there with all the other, gems that came in the set list and a few quiet moments, let's finish it off right and take us all home and make it a memorable night.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Ed is at this point, Ed is in a mood. It seems like he's good and drinky, and he's got a buzz going on, and he's got that kind of walk that he does when he's a little bit both buzzed and energetic, and he's slurring his words, taking a few extra swigs. So it seems like he's hit the bottle this night, which I think
that this was where the bottle gets passed around, right? He went down and gave it down. There was some point in this where he goes down and passes it around down the front row.
Yeah, I
Crazy
don't
Mary
remember.
style.
It does make sense that it would be in between here because the rest of the songs were all kind of back to back there. So yeah, that does make sense. But that it's going into black. You get 2 10 songs in a row near the end here, which is definitely playing towards the crowd. And this is interesting because of the ending. Instead of doing like a We Belong Together, he does something else because he sees a sign in the crowd. Going back to the signs, John, why don't you tell him what they were doing?
Yeah, so I was on the rail on Stone's side, and to the right of me, like kind of over by the speaker at the far right, there was someone had a sign. I think it was I'm trying to remember. I think it was like a guy and his son had a sign for thumbing my way, and I think early on in the night, Ed had kind of looked at it and kind of given him like a shrug, like, oh, we can't do that, we don't know it. But they kept the sign up all night, so I think he went over to look at it before Black, and yeah, it does like a really nice like little tag of thumbing my way onto Black. Cause I don't think we've ever gotten this before. Really, really nice.
Oh, the rusted sign. Oh, the rusted sign. Wish I would have had the time. Had the time. Coming my way. Coming my way. Coming my way.
To do that just off the cuff, to just think of it and have the ability to be able to like, kind of fit the words into the melody, and like it's just really well done, and like you would have thought they would have done it 25 times, but yeah, it's a really special moment, and I think they, for those people, I think it was over there with the guy and his kid, he always wants to make a point of, he sees those kind of like the generational thing together, and he made a point to do that. So yeah, another special moment for a fan. Yeah, just all throughout the show.
Chris, did you pick up on that in the moment where he's singing the line, all these rusted signs we've ignored throughout our lives? Did you recognize that, or was it until he actually said thumbing my way back to heaven?
No, I mean, I had to listen to the bootleg a few times to get that. I mean, again, my seats were not the greatest, but the version was by and large really, really good. I mean, Mike did the reverb and
Whale sounds.
Yeah, dude, just so good. I think that was one of the highlights for me too. Is like he just ripped it.
Ed spinning around during the I'm spinning part, like yeah, just how many great versions of Black have we covered recently? Like last year, that was like the theme of the
too
last
many and not enough
half of 2020. But yeah, we're starting this off with another great version. Yeah, just
last
fantastic.
week we did a good one too.
Previous episode, yeah.
Very early version.
Seattle, yeah.
Only the fourth time they'd ever played it, so. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna pretty much cover Black almost every single show that we do, and yeah, it's always gonna be a moment. So this one extra special for sure. To finish off the show, I'm gonna add State of Love and Trust into our bread and butter that we usually talk about. So let's go State of Love and Trust into Alive, into Rockin' in the Free World, into Ledbetter. And I'm just going to throw these on the table. The one thing that I noticed was that it was cool to see Jill on the side stage during this. That was pretty cool. I think she was probably with her sister because there was somebody that looked exactly like her right next to her. So that would make some sense. But anything from these last four, and it feels like it's a good party atmosphere to end the show. What stood out to you during this?
Yeah, so coming out of Atlanta, Rockin' in the Free World, that's how they closed the set, because they were running out of time. So I was actually feeling kind of like, oh man, they're really going to end with this again? Like, come on, I want to get Ledbetter. And then after they passed out the tambourines, then the lights are all on, and Mike, Ed looks at Mike, you still want to play? And he gets into Ledbetter, and I was like, yes, thank you. It was definitely a good moment for me as my second show, and that's the first time I got to hear Ledbetter.
Yeah, this section, like you said, Randy, this is the party is on, and immediately after Black, when Mike starts off State of Love and Trust, and he is poised and ready, like he is in attack mode, ready to get at that song, and you don't usually think of State of Love and Trust as like part of this kind of like end of the show party atmosphere, but it's great. Like they're in a great mood, and the thing that struck out to me with the live too, I don't know, it really hit me too. Like there's a band, I don't know if people are familiar, called the Hold Steady. They did a live stream back in December that I was watching. It really kind of stuck with me because their singer does a thing during the song that they have, and he always says a line about, there is so much joy in what we do up here, and that's kind of like he gets everyone to scream along, and that kind of resonated with me. I was thinking about that during this performance of Alive because it kind of hit me in a different way than I remembered it, because you're there, you've been there for 2.5 hours, you're worn out, but you're still having a great time. But you can just see it on their faces, like they still love it after 25, 26 years at this point. And it just hit me that this song is just a joy for them to play. Like they love seeing the reactions on people's faces. They love the interaction and they're just in a really good place with it. So I really appreciate it. I just wanted to mention that because, like, again, we kind of glaze over Alive sometimes, but watching this, and again, the video on this is fantastic. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be on the rail at a Pearl Jam show, watch this video on YouTube because it is perfectly well done from the very front row. You really feel like you're a part of it. It brought back a lot of memories for me, or a lot of good memories. So that was one that hit me. Rockin' in the Free World is fantastic. Again, a lot of crowd interaction. Everyone decided that this was the moment where they hadn't had a chance to do it yet, so they were everything starts getting pushed up to the front. He kind of changed lyric, like, who knew we were gonna miss you? Like I gotta think, if you look at this on paper, them going like, oh, we're really gonna do 4 shows in Florida. Like I don't know how that's gonna go, but and he goes like, Jacksonville, I think you win. I think he mentions all the cities. And again, like Stone gets the last solo on Rockin' in the Free World. It's great. And this hit me too. I think there's a moment where I think it's near the end, and it's the last tambourine maybe, and I think it was standing next to me. I think because there was a little girl. She might have been 10 or 11 years old, kind of to the back and left of me, and I think like they were pushing on her to get a tambourine during the whole song, right? So we were kind of like. Well, like, doing the thing where you kind of point your finger above her head and like we're all kind of like, look, there's this little kid here. And you kind of see him react, like he gets the last tambourine and he looks at her and he kind of does like a whoa, like he kind of does like a shocked expression and calls for like one more tambourine and like gets it to her. So that I remember that being a really cool moment. But yeah, it just seemed like they were having such a good time, and like it's just a great memory for me to have gone back and relived it through this video. It was fantastic.
Very cool. Yeah, those are moments that you can only pick out when you're down there right in the midst of everything. Very cool stuff.
And then the tag at the end of Yellow Ledbetter too, like how can it be anything else but yeah, a little Star Spangled Banner at the end there, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Just kind of attributing kind of the theme of the show is being the sort of a tribute to troops, but also, kind of tribute to the area. The arena is called the Veterans Memorial Arena. So, obviously we talked about it before, the Navy bases that are there. It's a perfect way to end it. And of course, Mike is tapping into his inner Jimi Hendrix again to finish this off. And there's not much better than that. So I will ask you guys, should I go first since I'm the least important on this panel when it comes to my moments?
Sure.
Why don't I do that? All right. My number 3 moment, I'm going to give that to Better Man because I thought this was a really solid, very fun version of Better Man. My number 2, it could be anything from Nothing Man to Rival to Ghost. I am going to give the nod to Let the Records Play because that surprised me a lot from this show. And it's not one that I go back to on the album, as I mentioned before, but this was a really, really fun, just like we said, swampy version. And they played into that a little bit more than they usually do, which was really cool. And then I can't give the number 1 nod to anything else but Of the Earth. And that's because it's Of the Freaking Earth. and it's just one of their absolute classic gems. Awesome, awesome moment. Glad you guys both were able to get it at this show. Please, please share your top three. Let's start with John. Let's let the guests
Yeah,
get the last
yeah.
licks in.
I got to put Of the Earth on my top three. That was just an amazing moment and something really cool. And like I said, I got to hear it twice that year, which is unbelievable. So love the song. Hope we get a real version of it someday. My number two is Ghost. I just remember seeing the person, whoever it was, in the ghost costume in the back, just freaking out, like having having a moment, and it just brought back a lot of fun memories for me. So again, just a fan service moment, really cool. No matter what you think, if you know Dimitri, if you've never heard of him before, it doesn't matter. Getting this version of Ghost is really cool. And my number one, I got to go with Black and that thumbing my way tag onto Black. I think that was a really special moment for it to be, someone right close to me, and for him to notice that and make a point of it was great. But, like you mentioned, honorable mentions, Hail, Hail, Nothing Man, Setting Forth, Let the Records Play, Spin the Black Circle, I Won't Back Down. Like, I'm not going to steal it from Chris anymore. Give us yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to give a nod to I Won't Back Down. It being in Jacksonville, just an hour away from Tom's hometown. For my third. Second, I'm probably gonna give that to Black. I really enjoyed Mike's solo during that song. I thought it had a tremendous amount of energy and just a lot of emotion into it, and just really memorable for me. And then, I'm going to agree with you guys. I think Of the Earth is probably my biggest takeaway from this show. I love that track. It is, I love the solos. I love that part in the middle where you just get that, Mike kind of taking your face off. It's great.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a show where Of the Earth is played unless they play, I don't know, every other Rare song that I love, and like an encore performance of Brandon J or something like that. Unless they've played all that while playing Of the Earth on the same night, I think I will always have this song in my top three. It's just it's that good. It's that big of a moment for me. So awesome. I I am going to rate the show first, and I'm a little scared because I hate rating first. I always like to kind of gauge what everybody else is doing and then kind of read the room almost. But I don't have a bad rating for this. There were some moments that I was a little kind of bored with, and I think that was the first encore. I was just a little bored by that beginning part and Ed kind of going solo, and I like more. I like when the band gets involved, and I like stuff like you mentioned, footsteps and off he goes and things like that in that spot. I think a little bit early, it wasn't that big of a deal, but Ed was very strained. I didn't even notice any of that after that. This is really a show where if you want recent stuff, if you don't want to dig for things like a Rival, like a Ghost, like an Army Reserve, if you don't want to dig for versions of those songs from the time period when they came out, because YouTube clips aren't going to have a lot of 2000 or 2006 clips out there, like this is a good show to go back and see performances of those songs that are pretty rare. And there was a time where I know that I would have gone back and I would have listened to stuff like that, because you just don't get it at every single show. I'm going to give this show a solid 8. I enjoyed it, and I would recommend to anybody that is looking to listen to something from 2016.
Yeah, coming into this, I think I had expected to be kind of in that range, because this one, when I go back and think about the shows I went to in 2016, obviously the Wrigley ones were very special. Greenville's very special. Columbia, I go back to a lot, but this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. So going into it, I was expecting it to be in kind of that 8-ish kind of range, but going back and listening to it and kind of talking it over, I think it's bumped it up for me. So many great moments, so many good versions of songs, a lot of rare stuff, a mix of the stuff, that great ending to the encore too. You know, I'm gonna give this a 9. I think it was fantastic. I enjoyed reliving the moments, and a lot of stuff came back to me, and it was great. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I agree with most of everything that you guys said. I think I'm going to come in probably about an 8.5. There were a few lulls there. In the early on with the set list, around that Army Reserve, Given to Fly, Rival, where it wasn't as, I guess, fan friendly in terms of the hits, if you will. But as someone who loves those deep cuts, I love to see setting forth of the earth. And I think that I'm glad that I got to see those live and got to see some songs that unfortunately, Randy, you haven't been able to see yet, as
That's
20
all right.
shows
There's
in.
a lot of time left.
A lot of time left. But yeah, but I give it about an 8. Yeah.
All right, cool. That's the sign of a good, solid show. Above average, I'd say that's like a B plus area.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice and very, very good. It's fun to go back on shows that people don't necessarily talk about too much, because you don't have the frame of reference for it. Besides, I think the only thing before maybe starting even this podcast that I knew about the show was that both Of the Earth was played, and the Ghost for the Greeks. So those were the only two things. And now you kind of have this wealth of knowledge about the show now that Glorified G, and they would play Glorified G the next night, and same with what the records play on Spin the Black Circle, all connecting into that record store day and that Greenville show. So very good, interesting stuff. Next week, what are we going to do? We're going to do a couple things. We are going to have a little interview with Jason Ling. He is the author of This All-Encompassing Trip, which is a book that chronicled his journey following the band in 2005 and 2006. He took a van across Canada and had some adventures, and some people jump in his van. He did the whole entire tour, and it's just very interesting to see the friendships that he created through this band, and how the music related to him. And it's a really good read. I definitely suggest you guys go out and buy it wherever the book is sold. I think there's a new copy that came out as a hardcover very recently. So he's going to come on. Not sure if that's going to be a separate episode or if this is going to be tied in to the show that we're doing next week. Next week's show is Saskatoon 2005, that tour that we just talked about. And he's got a really interesting and funny story from the book that we're going to talk about, and a lot of other things. There's so many things that I want to pick his brain about. So looking forward to that. And look at that, our third Canadian show, because we came out of last year. We said we've only done 2 shows out of Canada, and that was one of our goals for this year. More Canada, damn it, more Canada. Can't get more Canada than Saskatoon.
Let's think, Chris. I want to give Chris a chance to promote his. We talked about records a lot.
I was going to mention that during Let the Records Play, Spin the Black Circle, and I forgot.
Let's give Chris a chance to promote his little venture there. Why don't you tell us about your record thing going on there?
Yeah, my side hustle. So I do have a record store. It's online. It is named for Binaural, one of my favorite albums, binauralrecords.com. And of course, the patrons of this show do get a nice discount code, which we share on the Patreon page.
15% off. So if you're listening to this right now, you want to pick up some records, 15% off, binauralrecords.com. And Chris, people can talk to you, because I mean, like, we have access to you, obviously, and people have access to us. So if they're looking for something specific, we can reach out. We can make sure we can make that happen, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We can special order anything if it's something you're interested in. And we have a pretty big assortment of Pearl Jam and grunge albums online right now. But if there's something that we don't have, can easily special order it likely. So if you need something, just let us know.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, Chris, thanks again for coming on, sharing your stories today. It was awesome talking to you about this because you haven't been on the show yet and you've been a patron for over a year. So this was long overdue, and you're going to have your profile episode. We're probably going to hit record on it right after we're done with this one. And if you want to check that out, that's over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/live-on4legs. And that's what you get from joining our Horizon tier over there. So keep that in mind. If you want to tell your full Pearl Jam story, that's pretty enticing. Get that, and you get to help out a little bit with our website, Wikipedia, chronology, almanac, whatever you want to call it. So once again, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show. John, you were there and you had so many experiences from this show as well. So thank you for bringing what you had to bring to the table, and I'll thank myself because I don't want to feel left out. So, and I'm going to thank you for tuning in and staying until this little rant right here. So let's close this one on out. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, I miss you already, and I miss you always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if you like us on Apple, subscribe to us on Apple, and click that 5-star rating. Leave us a comment and let everybody else know how much you like us, and share the wealth, people. This is what it's all about. This stuff gets done through word of mouth. So tell your friends about us. Tell them about the show that you guys went to, whatever it is. Maybe you went to this show. Who the hell knows? Send it to your friends. We are coming back next week for Saskatoon. See you then.
Does anybody remember records?
Kelly, you want to hit that? Cheers, Florida. Who knew? We love you. Much love. Much love. Live.